Rifles firing, torches blazing, flags flying. This is propaganda. Or is it? For all our lives, we've been lectured that only totalitarian regimes force propaganda onto their populations. Lies, manipulation, deceit. None of that is new. What no one realizes or refuses to accept is that propaganda has evolved alongside society for centuries. This is the age of modern propaganda.
Yeah. Give me a yellow!
It's time to stop. Nearly a year after Logan Paul posted his infamous Japanese suicide forest video, and look at what's changed. Nothing. It appears the online community has forgiven, maybe forgotten, Logan Paul's mistake. After all, everyone deserves a second chance, right? Maybe a lot of people do, but not Logan. His manipulation of children is nothing short of propaganda. Logan targets his fans' emotions repeatedly until they inevitably submit and follow his commands. Emotions? Propaganda? His? Oh my god, this is all reminiscent of the Hitler Youth. As crazy as it sounds, the techniques Logan Paul has used upon millions of impressionable minds are no different than the tactics used by Germany's propaganda machine to lead Europe into the Second World War. If you don't know who Logan Paul is, then have you been living under a rock? Here's a quick rundown. Born and raised in Ohio with his younger brother Jake Paul, the two began making films on many different social media platforms until they finally rose up the ranks on Vine. Skip a couple years and Vine shutting down, so Logan Paul alongside Jake moves to YouTube, where he's currently amassed a fan base of 18 million people. To this day, his content has been subpar, to say the very least. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. Unlike the droves of wannabe commentary channels that will critique any little thing that brings in the ad revenue, I'm here to talk about something important. How Logan's extended his grip on his subscribers to grow one of the largest merchandise stores the internet has ever seen. Maverick by Logan Paul. This clothing line extends from $55 sweatshirts to backpacks ranging in the hundreds. Not only does this empty the pockets of unsuspecting parents, it teaches millions of vulnerable children a dangerous lesson about self-identity. All of this is done through propaganda. Throughout every video, Logan Paul emphasizes blatant lies about his merchandise. Maverick this, Maverick that. When not directing his fans to pester their parents, Logan Paul still promotes the Maverick brand by flaunting it everywhere he goes. He wears Maverick, his friends wear Maverick, his family wears Maverick, his bloody dog wears Maverick. I wear Maverick. Okay, I don't. But still, it has become so ingrained in the Logan culture that 1 out of every 9 Instagram followers from his main page also follow Maverick by Logan Paul. Nothing but a 24/7 advertisement for Maverick. That's over 2 million children volunteering to be surrounded by advertisements. This idea of groupthink via clothing reminds me of another close-knit group who adored wearing similar clothing. Just can't remember their names. With daily posts on Instagram and endless demands in his videos, it's a wonder how Logan Paul's fans can resist such mind-numbing promotions. To give Logan Paul the benefit of the doubt, at least his attempts at selling aren't so blatant as to just have him repeat "buy that merch" for over 2 minutes via verse. Instead, Logan's learnt of the fine art of propaganda that is branding. The first problem any marketer will face is establishing a connection between a consumer and a product, building a long-term relationship and creating a sense of value for next to nothing. This is a brand. See, the goal of brand advertising is to make a viewer think, nice, or that's pretty cool. That's it. No rushing out to stores or for a limited time only bollocks. Building a brand is not a call to action, it's making a favourable impression that will be carried in the back of a consumer's mind. For instance, Coca-Cola doesn't ask the viewer to instantly go out and buy. Instead, they promote positive values of friendship and bonding. These values, despite having no proven correlation with a carbonated beverage, are repeated multiple times to ingrain the positive impression. This is otherwise known as lifestyle advertising. Robert Zajonc of the University of Michigan demonstrated this in his study, The Attitudinal Effects of Mere Exposure. When presented with nonsense words, Chinese ideographs, and photographs of college students, a subject's attraction to these items would increase with exposure. Even though these symbols had no meaning, the subject ended up choosing it over others simply because they're familiar with it. Branding kicks this up a whole new level. The next time a shopper sees the Coca-Cola logo beside an unfamiliar brand, even if the latter is cheaper, they will still choose Coke 9 times out of 10. Along with Coca-Cola, the most successful brands have been Nike, McDonald's, and of course, the Nazis. Despite not being a corporation, Nazi Germany is quite possibly one of the most recognized brands on the planet. Show any European a swastika, you'll see what I mean. The Nazis advertised their ideology with such rigor that ignoring the importance they placed on branding undermines its deadly effect. How? Their propaganda agenda was to find every idea Germans already adored and force those ideas to become inseparable with the Nazi movement. Most notably, Germany. Germans loved Germany. Even after existing for a mere half-century, a major defeat followed by a humiliating peace treaty, Germans were still attached to the home they grew up in. Germans loved their country to such an extent that many couldn't believe, weren't willing to understand, their glorious military could lose the Great War, and this spurred the stab in the back myth. A claim that communists and Jews destroyed German morale on the home front for personal gain. The stab in the back myth is only one example of how the population's insatiable love for Germany would prove their downfall. Deputy Führer Rudolf Hess' declaration in Triumph of the Will,
Die Partei ist Hitler! Hitler aber ist Deutschland, wie Deutschland Hitler ist! Hitler! Sieg! Sieg!
is exactly what the Nazis wanted Germany, and to a lesser extent the world, to believe. Rather than the globe, Logan Paul only has to worry about building a brand for his loyal viewers, yet he still uses the same tricks of deceit that the Nazis used 70 years ago. Maverick isn't a merchandise, it's a movement, at least according to Logan Paul. Had he stated that he's opened a store to buy clothing from, even children would hesitate to buy from it. So Logan Paul builds a brand. By purchasing Maverick, you're, quote, joining the revolution, which is apparently happening across the globe.
We're having a 20% off sale on Maverick merch this weekend only, Memorial Day weekend. Yeah, we just dropped 5 new pieces. The Fly Together shirt, the Be a Maverick shirt. It's the hottest merch in the game. Started a movement. It's all across the globe. People who are doing themselves. People are doing themselves. Bro, what are you talking about? I meant like people. What do you mean? I meant like people, like you do you, and I'ma do me. Like I'm a Maverick. I'm over here. I'm doing it different. A movement of people who go right when they go left, like Andy's doing right now. I'm gonna go right.
By purchasing Maverick, you are making a statement about how you don't follow social conventions and proving the Low Gang's singularity. By purchasing Maverick, you can be the next Logan Paul. That is the crux of his brand. During every vlog, Logan expresses his wealth and status in new and endearing ways. The whole idea of riches and fame can now be seen firsthand by his herd of child fans. He says to them, "Wow, look at this fancy home I'm in. Look at these famous people I'm hanging out with. Don't you want to be like me? Well, of course you can, silly. All by getting that merch." This semi-ideology centered around one person may sound familiar. That's because it is. Logan Paul is reiterating the Hitler myth. In his 1987 book, The Hitler Myth, Image and Reality in the Third Reich, Ian Kershaw first coins the term Hitler myth to describe Nazi propaganda deifying Hitler as some sort of demigod. Their goal was to mold Hitler into a religious figure for all of Germany. He was described as more than a man, but a destined leader to bring back the pride and soul of the fatherland. The group constantly exposed to this lie? Children, because children are inherently stupid. Children under the age of 10, Logan's primary demographic, can't even comprehend how advertisements lie to them, and this has been proven in multiple studies. No one understood this better than Hitler, as you can tell in any speech where he references the youth. One example of Hitler's fanatical approach to children can be found in a German school book, The Poisonous Mushroom, with this text. Mein Führer, I know you well and love you as I do my father and mother. I will always be obedient to you as I am to my father and mother, and when I am bigger I will help you as my father and mother do, and you will be proud of me as my father and mother are. We want to be one people, and you, my boys and girls, will become this people. We want this people to be loyal, and you must learn to be loyal. We want this people to be obedient, and you must learn obedience. We want this people to be peace-loving, but also brave, and you, therefore, both love peace and be brave. We do not want this people to become weak and soft, but rather hard, and you must learn in your earliest years to be hard. We want this people to love honor, and you should seek honor. We want this people to become a proud people once more, and you should learn true pride. We of the older generation will pass away, but Germany will continue to live in you. You will hold our banners firmly in your hands. Heil Germany, Heil! Now, the German youth would read descriptions of Hitler and the Nazis in this benevolent style every day. Every day, millions of children would pledge their allegiance to their beloved Führer, the embodiment of Germany. Much like Hitler, they too could help bring back Germany to its rightful place at the top, but only by following the Nazi government every step of the way. Every day, millions of children are told by a young, attractive, confident man with more wealth and fame than they could dream that if they buy Maverick merchandise and become part of the Logang for life, then they too might reach Logan Paul's status. But more merch, the better. The German youth didn't know Hitler. They knew the idea of Hitler. An idea carefully crafted day in and day out, promoting the idea of a god among men. All the Logang loved the idea of Logan Paul, a myth selectively edited in his daily vlogs, yet when it comes down to explaining his true personality, not his persona, I doubt you'd get a shred of insight. Hitler's propaganda is best summed up in this poster: Ein Volk, Ein Reich, Ein Führer. While it has a catchy slogan, a domineering man to admire, and promotes the Nazi brand, all in one, it ignores the horrifying truth of the Nazis. Nazi Germany completely ignored human rights, set up spy organizations left, right, and center, and began a European conquest, taking the lives of 40 million people, 11 million of which were systematically exterminated. None of that is conveyed in this poster, and, as Goebbels put it, if you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. Then there's Logan Paul. Behind his friendly persona that millions have come to love lies a dark, unnavigable forest of lies, deceit, and a dead body. The vlogs providing the Logang with a closer connection to Logan Paul than they could have with any toy company, only to be exploited for their undying affection. While Jake forces his fans to like his merch, Logan follows a more deceitful approach. He pulls fans in with a life of fame and fortune. His artificial charisma formed this wonder into worship. Millions of children dream to have this type of life, and now they can act as if they belong, as long as they buy that merch. Once they do, the fantasy Logan has been feeding them for years will finally become a reality. Right? Logan Paul and Adolf Hitler were raised in two different worlds, yet their propaganda remains the same.